Hello, lovely people. I'm Stephanie Kubi, the host of the Her Before Mother podcast, and I hope I'm your favorite mom of three. In today's episode, we are talking about motherhood, new fear unlocked, which is all things imposter syndrome and the new fears and feelings that come up once you become a mom and responsible for a new human, which is valid. So let's get into it. When it comes to motherhood, whether you are an expiring mom, a new mom, or a mom that has been in the game for a while, there are fears that come up, which is normal to kind of navigate just because you are in charge of a new being. And so it's valid that you feel certain things. My biggest imposter syndrome feelings arose when I found out I was having a girl. I have always pictured being a mom, so finding out I'm pregnant or expecting, it's never like something that's like, whoa. However, for me, finding out I was having a girl brought up a lot of imposter syndrome and fears, only because growing up, I saw that there were a lot of women that had issues with other women. And I've also studied a lot about the friction between Black mothers and their daughters. And so that is something that's always been in the back of my mind, where I have a fear that if I do not heal, or I just let the things that I've suppressed or swept under the rug stay there, I'm going to be the kind of woman I don't want to be. And I'll model that to my children, or to my daughter in this case. So my imposter syndrome stemmed from, what if I don't live to my full capacity or capability? And I have some kind of resentment towards my daughter, not realizing that I do, or it's just that thing of like, if you don't live in the best way possible, you start to be envious of the children that you have raised, because it's a very normal phenomenon in, especially in the Black community. When you see, for example, your daughter in a happy, healthy marriage, and you didn't have that, you can feel a sense of jealousy, but not know that's what it is. Where you see your daughter complete school and you didn't get to because you were forced to get married, or like, there's just many, many layers to it. And I think race and culture has a role to play in that, but also just women in general, where society pins women against each other. So I had those irrational, well, not irrational, but I had those fears towards like a newborn, which is crazy. And so when I had my daughter C-section, that was a fear that I had, that what if I'm upset at her because I had to go into surgery to have her, when society has made C-section feel like that's not the right way. I didn't want to be resentful towards her because of the way in which she came into the world. So that was something that I was navigating. I had to work through it. Not that I had those feelings, I just feared that I will have those feelings, or maybe I had them and it was suppressed and I didn't know. So when it comes to mothering a girl, I feel like it's not spoken about enough, but also I think it depends on the experience that you've had in the past. And me wanting to put an end to the fear of women fearing other women, whether it's your daughter, your sister, whatever, it meant that I had to do a deep work that I've never really seen done while raising the child. And that is another episode for another day, because when you're healing um and raising a child, that sometimes triggers that healing process, it can be really hard, because you have a daughter, you're healing a sister wound or a woman wound or a mother wound or whatever wound is triggering, because that is another woman, and you're trying not to be an isolated mom, or a standoffish mom, or a mom that is not apologetic, or a mom that is this, a mom that is that, while healing and side eyeing other women. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, my imposter syndrome was so layered, because you had to work through self hatred, work through sister wounds, work through some generational wounds and things that I'd seen modeled and that I didn't want to repeat, without like pretending I was healed or just sweeping under the rug, actually doing the deep work that came with that. The deep work for me looked like not chasing other women when I felt rejected. I found that in the past when I felt like maybe a woman didn't like me or a friend didn't want to be my friend anymore, whatever, I'll do more to convince them that they should pick me. So I remember when I first had my daughter, before I had my daughter, there was this friendship that was ending that had been in my life for like over a decade, or actually a couple of friendships, but like they were fading out, whatever. I could feel that they were ending. And I was so nervous because I was like, I'm going to have a daughter and I've just had this notion that this person is going to be an auntie to my child, or this person is going to be there whilst I'm raising my child, and now they're not going to be in my life. How am I going to mother without that person in my community? Or how am I going to mother when, like, it's like we've been friends up until the child was coming. Why does it have to end now? So having to release the friendship and relationships, having to accept that they've made a choice was part of my healing journey, because I want to model to my daughters and live out that when someone chooses you, you don't have to seek their approval or convince them to do that. They choose you because they choose to choose you and they choose to love you. And if they have an issue with you, they are tender enough to let you know, but also gracious in the way they navigate that issue with you. And that wasn't the case. I didn't know. I was blindsided. And I wanted to show my children that love doesn't have to hurt like that. There are hard things about relationships, but you shouldn't have to go around convincing people to choose you or to pick you. Another thing, another way was learning to respect other people's boundaries and my boundaries. So sometimes when, let's say, a relationship doesn't work or things are not working out, it's easy to point fingers at the person and like, why don't they want me? Or why this, why that? But there are times that things just don't work out, and you also need someone to allow you to make a decision to exit, right? So being okay with someone making the choice that they don't want to move forward in a relationship with you is the same way you can also hold yourself up to a boundary where you don't also want to give someone access anymore. So it's that tit for tat. Like, it's not always they're malicious because they don't want to proceed with you. You also need to have that for yourself. Like, you can't keep everyone can't go with you. It's just learning the healthy ways to cope, just acceptance, releasing, grieving, because there are going to be times where you grieve it, and also realizing that one bad experience or one hard situation doesn't mean your whole life is hard. That's a big thing I've learned about motherhood. Like, having a bad mom day doesn't mean you're having a bad mom life. Like, just because your children had a lot of tantrums this one day doesn't mean they're bad children. They're a person that had a bad moment. It's just like us. When we have hard days, you don't have a hard life. You have a hard day or you have a hard season. So having that shift in mindset definitely helped me navigate. The ways in which I affirm my girls, it's very unique depending on the temperament. With my first, she can feel very sure of herself, and I never want to quench that. So in that regard, I allow her to make, of course, decisions that children can make, but at the same time, I'm learning to disciple her and straighten her in the sense that you don't always get your way with other people, in the sense that, like, you can do something that works for you doesn't mean that someone else has to join you to do that thing just because you want to do that thing. So just um learning to allow her to be unique, but also because with every strength you have, there is a flaw that comes with it, in a sense. So I don't want to quench like her, how like bubbly she is, how like outgoing she is, how out there she is. But at the same time, she has to learn to respect people's boundaries and timing and them wanting to do things or not. They don't have to, she doesn't have to always have to be a boss of someone. She can be a good leader without being bossy or manipulative of other people, for example. So I would say that that's how I affirm that. I allow her to lead in certain areas, in certain things, and I straighten her in the path that is right when she can't handle people not wanting to do things in her way, if that makes sense. Like, you can be organized but not so controlling of others, if that makes sense. And with my second, way that I'm uniquely allowing her to be her is not forcing her to do things she doesn't want to do. There's certain things that it's just like kids don't want to do those things, and that's different. But just being respectful of their character traits and preferences. That's a big thing. I learn to allow my child to have a quiet alone time if that's what they want, and not force them to dance or manipulate them to jump with me because I feel like jumping in that moment, if that makes sense. So I would say just stewarding them and like allowing their gifts and their natural talents to thrive, and also making sure that it's not leading them astray and they're not being full of self all the time.
Yeah.
Implementing self-care routines or wellness routines as a mom has helped a lot, not just in me showing up as a mom, but for my self-worth and self-confidence and how I show up in other relationships. I do feel like sometimes we think that neglecting ourselves means that we love more deeply than someone else. But I actually believe that you can love others well when you also love yourself well. Like it says in the Bible that like you love your neighbor as you love yourself. It doesn't say love your neighbor more than you love yourself. It doesn't say just love yourself, don't love your neighbor. Do you know what I mean? And so I think, especially in motherhood, one thing I don't play about, I don't have any fears about sharing is making sure that you are pouring into yourself too. It's not in a selfish affair. People just jump to you're being selfish, you're a mom, you have to give all and all and all. But again, for me, raising daughters especially, it's very important that they know that womanhood isn't so rigid and hard and painful and all those negative words, that you can be a soft mom. Like I don't have to rush every time we're going somewhere. I can start getting ready on time. I'm teaching them punctuality, but I'm also teaching them how to be present with themselves. I also have learned to prioritize doing my hair the way I prioritize doing my daughter's hair. Because I have daughters, now I'm more intentional about like what kind of products am I putting in my hair, because I care about the products they're putting in their hair. I'm very particular about what I'm eating, like whole foods and stuff for my children. And we're limiting the junks and junk food because like sometimes you just want to live your best life, but just showing them that like we can be moderate and not just eat whatever we want to eat. We care about what we put in our bodies, but we also want to enjoy life, right? It doesn't have to be so intense or so rigid. I'm just teaching them through the way I'm living, or trying to teach them through the way I'm living, because there are times that you have a hard day and they just need some chocolate chip cookies and pop, and you know it's not right, but you just need a fix for the day. But that your fix can become a lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? So just teaching them that you can be there's like you can be intentional, you can have fun. You don't always have to like resting too much is laziness and hustling too much is not trusting God. Just being intentional all around has really made me a better mom, showing up in the things that I love, like doing this, making me a better mom because now it's like I get to miss my kids. I know that I've poured into myself, I've poured into my passions, and they are seeing me do it. And that's encouraging to me because they know that they can also be moms and still have gifts and still have talents and still go after them and still be rested and all those things. So I find that when I was a new mom, what was my biggest roadblock was that I was more concerned with how I was perceived than being present with my child. And that's the biggest mistake I made. I was so nervous about like, what if my child has a tantrum in the supermarket and people are watching me? Now I can go to the supermarket without fear because I know that if you have a tantrum, I'm here with you. And what's happening? Let's have a conversation. In the beginning of my motherhood journey, it's like the portrayal of perfection is what is modeled in motherhood. But you have to realize that motherhood again is about surrender. And so for me, it's like, what lesson am I teaching my child in that moment? Am I there for them? Am I attending to their needs, or am I protecting my ego? Like that's something I never wanted to do. Like basically like feeling like you need to yell at your child because they're making you look bad. That is not a thing I struggle with anymore. Like if I want my child to do a certain thing, or I know that they need a certain thing done, there's some kind of support, I'm not afraid to do that with like I'm okay looking weird because I know that my child knows that like they are a priority to me. And it's not about what people think of me, but it's about the love that their mom has for them and how intentional she is. She can get to their level without judgment and without pointing fingers. Like my children don't make me do anything. They're never my excuse. They're always my reason. And so I would say in the beginning, oh my God, it was heavy people pleasing for sure because you're new to this. And so you don't know the child, which we should know, right? Like if we don't know the child, then I'm learning this, but it's like you're a rookie at everything and there's so many opinions and you want to be liked and you want to be encouraged and whatever. There's so much validation you need because of how fragile you are. And that's why I say a new mom is like a new baby. It's like it's so impressionable and anyone can tell you anything and it just stays with you and whatever. Now, a stranger can tell me something I won't even remember because I don't know you. You don't know my child. So why are you giving me advice on someone that you just met? And I've been with this person for years. So it's like learning to sift advice, learn to sift opinions, getting sound advice from the right people and not being afraid and be humble enough to ask people that are doing something right that you feel like this is what I would like. I'm able to ask them, but I'm not going to not sit with my child to learn them because motherhood is like also a school. Like you're learning your children and your child. And if you have multiple, each child is a different course. It's not a one size fits all. Like except for like breastfeeding the beginning, every child is unique. So you have to take your time in studying them for sure. To the mom battling imposter syndrome, I want you to know, I feel like I've said this before, but I want you to know that you are a new mother to a new baby, to a new child. Even if the child is not little, if your child just became a teenager, you are a new mom to a new teenager. Do you know what I mean? Like every new milestone is a new experience for you. Again, even if that's your second teenager, that's the first time you're mothering that particular teenager. So I want you to know that you're only an imposter to something that you feel like you're not equipped for. And if you're new at something, then you have to learn it. You're a learner, you're a new student of something, but you're not an imposter. Secondly, you're graced to be the mom to your specific child. I say that all the time because people just think that it's one size fits all. I did this for my teenager, so you do this for a teenager. Like there are things that fits all in quotes, but we all come from different backgrounds with different children with different temperaments and different values. And so you have to realize that you have to have grace for each of your children and grace for yourself because again, as they are navigating, you're navigating it too. It's not like you've been navigating it without them. A third thing is as much as you are looking for support or encouragement or whatever, also encourage that you look for mentorship from safe people where it's like you can learn things from them, you can ask them questions without judgment. It's not always like I'll be in my head and be feeling bad about something. You can reach out to someone that is good at that thing or has experience or has done it well so they can guide you. And also like just sitting with yourself and being reflective about each occurrence that has happened, why you feel the way you feel. Because you might feel like an imposter just because you're doing it correctly or you're doing it differently from what you've seen. Just because you're not doing it the way you've always seen doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that your values might be different or you have different goals. When you're new to something and do something differently, it might feel harder. It always feels harder. If you decide, I don't want to yell, I want to get to the roots of something and really disciple and still with my child's heart, and you're used to being yelled at and not being apologized to, but you apologize to your children, of course it's harder because now you're more humble, you're more accountable, you are more relatable. It's hard. Do not forget that like feeling like an imposter can be that you're doing things right and that's why it's harder. And giving yourself time is the best thing. As long as you're aware of it and you're taking steps to make it better, you're not an imposter, you're learning, you're a student. So with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching today's episode of the Hair Before Mother podcast. If you learned something, you loved it, subscribe, share with a friend, comment below. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. And till the next one, take care. Bye.